Call the meeting to order. It is now 7:05, so we're a little late getting started. We will go to item number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. And now our city administrator will call the roll.
Alder Arata-Frada. Alder or Chairperson Barr.
Present.
Alder Strassman. Alder Clowder. Alder Krause. Alder Rice. Mayor Richardson.
Here.
Alder Schrader. Alder Scott. We have a quorum.
Okay. At this time, we will go into approval of the minutes from the last committee of the whole meeting, which took place on October 23rd, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
There's a motion by Alder Scott. Is there a second? Second by Alder Krause. And any changes or discussion on the minutes? Being none, then we will go into a vote. All in favor of approval of the October 23rd, 2019 minutes may say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed may say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We are now on item number 5, which is public appearances for non-agenda items. Is there anyone who wants to speak under public appearances at this time? Maybe I have a slip. I don't know. Let me check the slips quick. Okay, there's a Bruce Matthews. I don't know which item you want to speak under. There's no number listed on the slip. Is Bruce available? He's part of the... You're with COPA? Okay, great. It doesn't look like there's anyone here to speak then under public appearances for non-agenda items, so we'll move on to item 6A, and that will be our Performing Arts Center presentation. And from COPA, Nancy Mistel is here to present first.
Thank you, Council President Barr and board members, council members. Glad to be here tonight. I think I've had a chance to meet with just about all of you individually at one time or another over the past several months about the COPA, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, go a little bit more in depth with you on the project and answer any questions you may have. So thanks again for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And working the equipment here. Hopefully this will work. Dan, there we go. Okay, good. Okay. The COPA, and you have this presentation in your packet. The COPA is a performing arts center that we see will be a catalyst project, a cornerstone project for the Fitchburg downtown redevelopment zone. We believe it will bring identity to Fitchburg and an opportunity to bring tourists, visitors, patrons, and performing arts enthusiasts from all over Dane County and elsewhere into Fitchburg. From an economic development perspective, obviously people choose a community for the amenities that fit their lifestyle and bring a certain vibe, and we truly believe that the COPA will actually add that to Fitchburg. The COPA is really, it's a bricks and mortar project, but I like to say that really what we're talking about here is people. It's a place where individuals will find their creative self, learn personal skills, develop confidence and creativity. An educational facility that will support arts organizations and offer programming for youth and young adults alike. As you can see here on this slide, we'll have a performance space for up to 400 seats. This will actually be movable seating, so this space can be used for corporate functions, theater seating, essentially any sort of a format that might be desired. We will have rehearsal halls and practice spaces, both large and small, to accommodate individual lessons, practice facilities, up to a full orchestra. We will have administrative and support spaces to support our tenants, as well as others that will use the facility. This will include a music library, conference rooms, storage space, dressing rooms, costume shop, instrument storage, etc. And then public spaces. We envision the COPA not only as a home for performing arts organizations, but a community center where a lot of various community activities can occur, where various senior activities could occur, events that the city supports, programs that the city supports, Neighborhood events could all be held here at the Copa. There will be a Rathskeller Cafe, and again, we're looking at free parking, and as we're on existing transit lines, one of the things that the Copa truly offers is accessibility to the community. The Copa is a state-of-the-art facility, 70,000 square feet, and again, I won't go through this full entire list of all the various features, as we've kind of discussed that already. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is the concept of the Rathskeller listening room. So Dale Sticka, the founder, and I'll give some more detail on Dale in a minute, he has a business in Fitchburg called Sosonic. And within Sosonic, he has the listening room, which at present day, on the third Thursday of every month, creates a venue for performing artists to come and hone their craft in front of a live audience. It's an acoustically perfect facility. We had a group come in a couple of months ago, and they not only performed to a standing room only group of 65 people, but they live streamed out to an audience of 3,000. So Dale has already been engaged in working with artists in the community and trying to bring new special talent, and we envision the Rathskeller doing that on a much grander scale. It will be an opportunity with a stage, open mic sessions, comedians, performances, opportunities again for community meetings. So the Rathskeller, as I think, will be one of the really significant community spaces within the Copa that will become shared by all and a vision for all in support of the community. I wanted to also comment about the Find Your Light program that I've illustrated on this slide. Capital City Theater is to be a tenant at the Copa. And the Find Your Light program is their conservatory program where they work with young adults ages 17 into the college that are looking to make a career in live stage and live theater. They teach vocals, they teach acting, stage presence. I went to one of the Find Your Light programs last year, and it's just amazing to me to see the talent that they're producing out of this program that we will have the opportunity to see here in Fitchburg, and kids that are performing well beyond their years. If you had an opportunity to see them, you'd be surprised to learn that they're 17, 18, and 19 years old. So the Find Your Light program is another example of some of the educational programming that would happen within the Copa. I'm sure that many of you have heard of Dale Sticka and have had the opportunity to hear from Dale in the past. As a lifelong resident and music entrepreneur, Dale has owned an arts facility here in Fitchburg called Sosonic. He's located over off of Latham Drive. The listening room is within that facility. But Dale has been with the Elton John Tour for the last 25 years. He is in Australia right now. And while he's envisioned this project for the last couple of years, by virtue of the fact that he spends the majority of his life on the road, he's obviously not been around to continue to see it forward. So while he's had the wonderful opportunity to be overseas, I've recently come on board to be the boots on the ground here to help bring this facility to fruition. When Dale first started the project, too, I want to say that he did work with some of the major arts organizations in town, the Children's Theater, the Youth Choir, Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra, and you'll hear from some of those folks here today, as well as Madison Ballet. So those organizations all sat at the table and created the vision for the Copa, a space that would accommodate all of their needs, allow them to collaborate, work together, but also have the spaces they need at the times that they need. So this is not just a vision of Dale Sticka, but it's a vision of Dale that he has put together in concert with many organizations that are in need of space for their various organizations. The Copa vision, again, I think it's, again, I like to say it's definitely about the building, but it's really about what's going to happen inside. And it's an extensive education and training in both performance and the technical arts. Our youth arts organizations that will be present in the building will provide the training and experience for youth and adults on the performance side of the stage, and where Dale's skills will come to play are with his industry connections to help people learn the technical skills of the backstage, the lighting, the sound, the music production. And so from a standpoint of what will be gained at Copa, it will obviously be training and education that is 360, full circle when it comes to the arts. a space for all of our organizations and participants to grow. And again, I think you'll have the opportunity to hear from some of the arts organizations through WISO specifically. A lot of our programs are capped out where they exist today, and many of them are operating out of multiple facilities. And by being able to bring their programs, their administration, and their performance all under one roof, they'll have a greater opportunity to expand their programs beyond and to continue to grow their programs within the community. I think one of the most important things is the number of people that will be served by the programs in Fitchburg, and these are all people that might be new to Fitchburg, new to the opportunity to be in the community, but the organizations that we're talking with already will serve up over 800 students between Youth Symphony Orchestra. We have a charter school that you may be familiar with, Milestone Democratic School, that seeks to have occupancy at the COPA, and then the Capital City Theater programs that I've mentioned in the past. We're also in conversation with other arts organizations for either permanent status at the facility or ad hoc use, because not every group will come and be permanently housed at the COPA, but some will use it on a periodic basis. Location is everything, and if you're a realtor, you know that. And certainly, as you all know, and this is what brings us to Fitchburg, the project has always been slated for Fitchburg. We have always chosen Fitchburg for its proximity to the communities that we seek to serve. And as you're probably aware, that the location that we seek to have the COPA located, which will be at the corner, I envision it for the corner of Post Road and Fish Hatchery Road within the new downtown redevelopment zone. This area has a very high underserved population, and we will also be within 2 miles of the new Madison South Campus. I've actually had a meeting already with the dean over there to talk about the developments of an arts curriculum, where there might be classroom activity there, followed by use of the COPA as the laboratory phase, so that we can develop and continue additional education here in the community. Affordable to the arts, for arts organizations. We will have scholarships as well available so that participants have the opportunity to use it that might not otherwise be able to afford it. We're within your Healthy Neighborhoods initiative. We seek to provide some of the services that you all look to provide as a result of those programs that you've already got in place. We are on existing transit lines if located there, and our vision also is free parking, which is obviously one of the main features when you're bringing a lot of people to town. You want to make sure that they can get in. The demand in the community is pretty strong. There are over 300 arts organizations in Dane County looking for a home. But again, I think some of the importance of what we will do here with the COPA in Fitchburg is provide affordable, accessible space where they live. Madison has been very fortunate to have a lot of support for the arts, and you're certainly all well aware of the Madison Youth Arts Facility that's now being built on East Washington Avenue. And they will house 2 of the 4 organizations I had mentioned earlier, Children's Theater and then the Madison Youth Choir. But even with those organizations down there and other groups that have looked to seek support in the facilities there still is a tremendous need for additional space. And not all groups have found that that will be a home, which is why we believe that there's additional opportunity to further expand access for the arts. And when Dale was involved in the original and early research for this project, he did determine that Dane County could support up to 4 locations. And if the downtown facility is approaching full, we have the opportunity then to serve those organizations that are yet still in need and bring them to life in Fitchburg. As you can see on this slide, and I'm not one for reading what's on my slides, we are within a 15-minute drive of 80% of Dane County. We'll serve over 246,000 residents and 47,000 youth that are within our region. Not only will we bring financial resources through the programs that we, as the operators of the COPA, will bring bands and organizational events and other activity, you'll obviously have everything that comes with all of the tenets of the organization. The youth organizations that will bring the students, all of their parents that will be coming to the community. There will be a direct and indirect spending that will come into community. And not only will we see an advancement for businesses in the community, but probably considerable additional tax base, I think, for Fitchburg as well. I want to actually comment on, make one additional comment regarding Milestone Democratic School. You've heard from them before. Joyce Fry made the introduction of COPA to Milestone. We've met a number of times. And their school, while envisioned to be a small charter school, the arts is an integral component for their students. And being located in the COPA, they see themselves having the co-location to the arts groups as extremely important. Because as a small school, being able to provide for all of the students all of the various aspects of their education that they'd like will be somewhat difficult. So they're very excited to just simply be co-located with those organizations, which will also then give the organizations that are in the building that additional opportunity to expand their programming to help serve those students as well. The school will be opening in August of 2020 in some temporary space with the vision of coming into the COPA then when we're fully functional. Again, over 300 arts organizations looking for space. The COPA will address the space needs of several of those. We support resident tenants and those needing intermittent use. I commented on that previously. And then showcasing the latest in theater technology, and this again is where Dale will come in. We will work with other industry partners such as Electronic Theater Controls, Full Compass. Dale has connections into numerous arts organizations across the country, and the opportunity to bring national acts and international industry partners to the community to provide some training experience for various users of the facility will also be extremely important. These statistics have come directly from Arts Wisconsin, top reasons to invest in the Wisconsin creative economy, and that's really, I think, what we're looking at here is promoting true prosperity, fostering creativity, a social impact with social cohesion, higher child welfare, lower crime and poverty rates. And I think one of the most important aspects is improved academic performances for the youth that would be involved in programming at the COPA, lower dropout rates and higher academic scores regardless of socioeconomic status for those that have engaged in the arts. 72% of executives that are involved in hiring say creativity is one of the most important aspects in hires that they make. And obviously bringing the creative arts to Fitchburg, giving the opportunity for youth and adults alike in the programming that will happen within the COPA, we see this as a tremendous opportunity to be able to provide and or enhance what's currently being learned in schools around the state, or around the city. And arts will drive tourism, so certainly from the perspective of bringing newcomers to Fitchburg, you know, we see that as a huge opportunity. I know as part of the expansion opportunities in Fitchburg, you've talked about hotels. I think the COPA can actually help support and drive that economic development here in the community. We've been in conversation with Ned and Mike Thorson and Ned Hoyt, related to the projects they're doing already at the juice plant, the other projects that they have in mind for that part of the community. And I think that we're talking collectively about how the Arts Center will not only enhance what they're doing, but make collectively a great opportunity for us to maybe expand and enhance the speed at which the development might occur in the new downtown area. Again, our local impact, direct spend from our arts organizations that will be here, trade shows, exhibits, opportunities for gallery showings, regional draw of tourists. We see the COPA also, I mean, from a jobs perspective, the COPA will drive the economy in jobs for the construction itself, but certainly when we're in operation, there will be jobs and opportunity for people within the restaurant that we see that will be within the COPA, ticket takers, ushers, a whole variety of opportunity to be involved in jobs actually running the facility as well. So I think, again, there's an economic impact right now, I think, for the COPA that really is yet to be defined as we grow and we expand. One of the exciting new activities that we've done is we've recently added Mike LaCrone to our capital campaign team. Mike LaCrone, as you know, is well known and well regarded not only in Madison and Wisconsin, but across the nation. He's certainly well aware of the tremendous opportunity the arts bring And was excited about the the prospect of being involved with our project. And in fact, one of the first things he said to me was, "Have you got plans for expansion? I think you'll be full on day one." So it's great to have the opportunity to work with some people that are already familiar with the arts, and bringing a lot of great things to the community, and that I'm going to be privileged to be able to have the opportunity to work with as well. So what will it take to bring the COPA to fruition? A lot of hard work, donors, sponsors, and municipal support as well. Our fundraising goals, as you can see on this slide, the facility will be $35 million. We will also raise $5 million for an endowment. The facility itself needs to be a fully funded project. In order to keep the arts affordable, to keep facilities such as this affordable to the arts, it cannot support debt. It does need to be fully paid. And the endowment then is also there to help support the arts organizations that will be tenants in the building, but also to provide scholarship for those that might not be able to afford the programming. We will be out seeking contributions from individuals as well as corporations. Donations may be monetary, maybe in kind, or equipment. We will have opportunities for various organizations, groups, or individuals to have naming rights for various parts of the facility. And as I said, the endowment really helps to support the sustainability of not only the facility, but the organizations and the accessibility of the programs for youth in the community. From a municipal perspective, I've already had the opportunity to meet with a few people in the community, and the question comes to me: is there community support for this project? So as we're out looking for community support, there is that interest in knowing that from an economic development perspective as well as a political perspective, that there is support for a facility of this type. I think one of the things that we're looking for as we go forward is developing relationships at all levels. I gave a presentation at Dane County. We'll continue to explore what opportunities we have with the county as far as funding. Been in conversations with several of you about working with Fitchburg and seeing what Fitchburg can do. We will be a 501c3 nonprofit, but certainly working with the developers and other aspects of the downtown redevelopment, we're hopeful that there will be amenities that might come through as a result of your support for them that will accrue benefit to our project as well. Creative thinking and financial support, I have to say I'm a little bit new to this game. If there's opportunities in Fitchburg through a variety of your programs where we might have access to funding, I would certainly look to you to be able to point me in the right direction, whether it's the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative or through your comprehensive planning activities, whatever opportunities there are out there, we certainly look to you to provide us the opportunity to be engaged in those conversations. One of the things that I've spoken with the mayor about is that of a resolution or a show of public support. One of the things we will be doing is talking to banks around the community regarding their requirements to have a community reinvestment. And a resolution, I've been told, will go a long way to helping the banks see that the community is engaged, so that as they seek to engage themselves, they're aware of that opportunity. And I've been talking to Wisconsin Economic Development Authority about convening a group of bankers together. And if a resolution were forthcoming, that would be certainly a great opportunity for us to be able to show them, without asking all of you to show up to every meeting I ever give, that there is a show of support from strong support from Fitchburg. Obviously, your participation at meetings. We've been asked if the mayor would come or if council members will come and join us at meetings. And certainly where it makes sense, we would ask you to be participants in those meetings with us, because it is important that your presence, your support is known to a whole variety of players in the community. This slide just is an example for you of the experience and the breadth of our support. Numerous folks from the arts organization have been involved in this project long before I came on board. We have folks from the business community, from the arts community, in addition to my boards for the Building Foundation, the community organizations promoting the arts, Inc., will own and operate the building. The Friends of COPA Foundation will oversee the endowment. Deliberately kept separate to provide some arm's length on that sort of work. But again, our goal and our mission is to make sure that both of these boards work in concert together. I'm in the process of developing a capital campaign committee, separate and apart from the boards, but members of the board will also participate in those activities as well. Bringing the arts to Fitchburg is basically my goal. This is my final slide, but an opportunity to let you know. We're looking for all of you to become champions of COPA. Whatever financial support you can bring or individuals that you can do via introduction to donors and participants. If you know of organizations that are looking for a home in Fitchburg, I'm really excited to say that several of our conversations have already been generated as a result of Mike Zimmerman and Joyce Fry, our connections to the developers that are already looking at Fitchburg, our connection to the school. And if you're getting inquiries about needs for space, certainly passing those along to us so that we can explore a relationship is extremely important as well. So I'm ready, willing, and able to give presentations to any groups that will hear me. Julia, you're going to get to hear me again tomorrow at CETA, so thank you for that, sitting through it twice. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I will answer any questions, and I think I have a few folks here that might want to add a few words about our project as well, so.
Okay, is there anyone who has any questions for Nancy? Alder Rada-Frada.
Yes, Nancy, if you're coming to Fitchburg, you need to change COPA, instead Madison, put COPA Fitchburg
Yes.
in the slide.
Yes. I have to tell you, Julia, that I will tell you that actually has been a point of conversation
Okay,
across many stratas.
okay.
And there are some that suggest that we need to be thinking regionally,
Yeah.
Copa Madison. But I understand fully exactly what you're saying. And I'll go back to one of my slides, because I think that I've made it a point that, oops, you know what? I have another slide. Where did that slide go? One of my slides has Fitchburg on the front.
Okay.
So I'm going to change the one in the presentation for sure. How's that? Oh, there. I do have one that has Fitchburg, so thank you for that. I'll make sure I adjust the presentation.
Okay.
It is not on this slide, but I do
Okay.
have it at home. I will update. Thank you.
Anybody else with questions or comments? Sure, Shannon, go ahead.
Do I have the thing on right? Okay. I just think it's a great idea. I think it would be perfect for what our vision is for downtown and bring more people, well, actually bring a feel of downtown to Fitchburg. And I think it would be great for our youth to be able to have somewhere to go and things to do and keep them busy. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, Julia, go ahead.
Yes, Nancy, I think maybe you told me in our previous meeting, but I don't remember. What is the time frame for this project?
Well, in a perfect world, and in my perfect world, we will raise the funds this year. We will have our plans moving forward by the end of the year, and hopefully start construction in 2021 to open in 2022. Some may say that's a little aggressive,
Yeah.
but I figure if you don't have a target, you don't have achievement. So right about the time the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction is complete, we'll be able to open.
Wow.
How's that?
Okay, Alder Clouder.
Nancy, I think I know the answer to the first question, and that's if the city needs space for a conference, for CETA, for whatever, I'm sure you'd have space down that we could use down there, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I think when you talk about the performing arts, it'd be a home run too to talk to our, not only you probably have, not only our senior center, but the new senior building on Fish Hatchery Road. So a Tuesday night, it would be the art night for the seniors to go to Copa.
Agree. Great ideas.
Food for
Yes.
thought.
Yes.
The last question is hard, and if you can't answer it, I totally understand. I saw the money on the screen. I saw what you're trying to raise. I'll say it again. You don't have to answer. We can talk later. Is there going to be an ask out of Fitchburg?
I think that what we would like to see is certainly some financial support from Fitchburg.
Do we know what?
Pardon?
Do we know how much?
I haven't set a dollar figure. Let's just say in my mind, if there were an opportunity to have Fitchburg engage for the development of a parking ramp or other amenities that are appropriate, because I do understand that TIF we aren't eligible for TIF as a 501c3, but being part of a significant downtown development that will accrue benefits to Fitchburg for the next 50 years, I would certainly ask Fitchburg to consider what other opportunities they have that are appropriate use of taxpayer funds, because I certainly understand and recognize that the importance of being transparent in everything that we do. And so I think that probably is something that will come down the path as we see how the rest of the project develops and the community downtown develops.
Okay, let's go back to, Julia had caught my attention, then we'll go to Dorothy.
No, my question was the same that Tom, it was how much, you're asking for our public support, but also how much will be the financial support and, but you answered that, so.
Okay.
Okay, Dorothy?
Thanks. Good to see you again.
Hi.
We were at a county meeting together. I got to hear, this is my second time listening also. I've been texting a little bit with Jake Johnson, who lives in Fitchburg, and he owns Paradigm Productions. And what I'm saying to him is, they'll probably need a sound guy, and you can help design the space.
Yes,
So get him on board.
great, that's good to know. Connect us. You've
We
got
will
my
do that.
email too. Thank you.
Alder Rutherford?
Do you have any big donors now that they are already pledged some money to you or company?
No, the answer to that is no in the
Okay.
short term. Where we stand, we just recently filed our 501c3.
Okay.
And so we're just putting the documents together to
Okay.
begin the campaign and the fundraising.
Okay.
So while I've been out and about speaking about it right now, the cultivation of a major donor has not yet occurred.
Okay.
Okay, is there no one else? Nancy, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Welcome, thank you.
Okay, up next on this topic, we have, you can both come up, we have Bruce Matthews and also Bridget Frazier from the Wisconsin Youth Sympathy Orchestra. And we also, I think that might be it. So, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is Bridget Fraser. I'm the Executive Director for the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestras. And I'm here tonight to show support for this project, but also to give you all some sort of sense about what type of arts organization would be interested in this project. WISO is really a statewide institution. We are a 54-year-old youth arts program that enjoys not only a very strong local support, but a very good reputation as far as one of the finest youth orchestra programs in the country. WISO serves somewhere near 550 kids from south central Wisconsin. Our administrative offices currently are located just off of Greenway Cross, just down the road. But our program currently runs on the campus of the University of Wisconsin. We have outgrown that space, and we are looking for a home that can house not only our program, but our administrative offices. We also have a program on Lacey Road that serves, it's called WISO Music Makers. It serves 80 low-income families in this community by offering them music lessons and performance opportunities and group classes on Saturday. So we are very interested in this project. We would love to see our home in Fitchburg. This project was, as Nancy alluded to, we were one of the original prospective tenants for this organization, for the COPA organization. When the Madison Youth Choirs and the Children's Theater broke off to go to the Madison Youth Arts Center, this is a perfect example of how that facility is just not going to be enough to serve the needs of the community. Our organization is too big for that Madison Youth Arts Center project. So we are very interested in the success of this project. As I said, we'd love to remain in Fitchburg. We are an economic engine. We have 500 kids that descend on State Street and on UW campus on a Saturday morning. That includes their families. Lots of activity going on in about a 6-hour time span on a Saturday morning, and we would love to be part of the growth of Fitchburg in that way as well. So I'm also here with Bruce Matthews, who is on the board of directors of the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestras, and he can speak to that perspective.
Thank you. Not only am I on the board, but I'm your neighbor. I live in Forest Glen, about 200 yards from here. But 54 years ago, I was a senior at West High School, and I knew I wanted to be a musician. And this new organization, Wisconsin Youth Orchestra, came into being with Marvin Rabin arriving. And I auditioned for and got into the very first youth orchestra. We were 86 of us, all crammed onto the stage of Old Music Hall. Since that time, we now have served over 4,000 students and their families. My oldest daughter, who was the first, second generation member of WISO, still is involved in the arts, but she took what she learned in WISO to become a full professor in English literature at Brigham Young University. She went on the first tour, that international tour that the youth orchestra did in 1989. And if you remember 1989, what happened in the fall of 1989, this first tour of these kids was to the Aberdeen Youth Festival in Aberdeen, Scotland. They did concerts in London, and they did concerts in Aberdeen. And the final concert was a combined orchestra of kids from all around Europe. Her stand partner was from East Germany. A guy in front of her was from the Soviet Union. And little did they know that in 2.5 months, the wall would come down and there would be no East Germany and there would be no Soviet Union. So these kinds of experiences that these young people have prepare them for life. There's a great ad running on television that the NCAA runs that we have 400,000 student athletes in America, but only 2% of them go pro in something other than sports. So we have alumni who have performed in some of the great orchestras of the world, but we have even more alumni that are public servants, they're physicians, they're instructors, and they are doing wonderful work because of their training in music. So I have a very vested personal interest in this because of my background, but I'm the president-elect of the board, and in a year and a half, I'll be coming to be the president of the board at a time when all of this is going to be happening. So I am very much in support of it, and I'm really excited about the next 2 or 3 years for us.
Just to also give you a scope of sort of our activity, WISO gives 3 public performances every year, and that brings roughly 2,000 or 3,000 people to currently Mills Hall on campus. That would now be, if this were a Fitchburg location, would be, driving some economy here in Fitchburg with that kind of concert schedule.
For coming.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, next we are on the draft comprehensive plan presentation from Sonia, and Sonia had chatted with the mayor and indicated we have some residents who want to speak, and so I'll call on them first, and then we'll have Sonia give her presentation, and then we can have a discussion. Let's start with Jay Hockmuth. Jay has asked for 5 minutes. He says he's speaking for 4 people, and so we'll do that. I like to let people finish, but I ask that you be concise and brief, but we can go 5 minutes and do the best you can. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to offer some remarks about the draft comprehensive plan. I'm going to try to keep this way under 5 minutes. There's a copy of my remarks they just distributed. Essentially, I'm here tonight on behalf of 4 people to talk about the comprehensive plan, in particular, a provision that's been quite controversial and there's been a lot of attention to it. And last night, the Plan Commission voted to make some modifications to the provision that's been the source of the controversy. If you recall, the council on December 10th adopted a resolution establishing provisions on 2 different pages governing the role of the council and the Plan Commission in dealing with comp plan amendments. And the language essentially says that in the resolution that the council will consider recommendations of the Plan Commission, but the council has the final say. And there's been a lot of back and forth on this, a lot of information I and others have provided to this body and to the Plan Commission with respect to other legal aspects to this. And essentially all of that information is attached to this testimony. I'm not going to go through that tonight. But what I do want to do is emphasize a couple of things from a process standpoint. The first being that the resolution that the council adopted on the 10th specifically says that the final say provisions be on both the draft considered by the Plan Commission and the draft considered by the council. That hearing is now going to occur on March 10th, and that's great news, and staff should be commended for getting everything to the point that they have, and we're really moving forward with this, and there was a lot of adjustments made last night based upon public feedback, and I'm sure there'll be more down the road, but essentially, on the 10th, there's going to be a hearing. And the contents of that plan are extremely critical. And one of the reasons I'm here tonight is to encourage this body to discuss and research the opportunity to have 2 different provisions in that draft plan dated March 10th. One is the language recommended by the Plan Commission. I'm not going to argue about whether the Plan Commission has a legitimate basis for making the recommendation that they did. There's ambiguity in the statute, there's no case law, there's a lot of stuff going on. But equally so, the language that the council adopted in the resolution in December is equally supported legally, I believe, and there's been a lot of other opinions offered on this. And so one way to really get this before the public is to put both versions in the plan that's put on the website and becomes the subject of the hearing on March 10th. And I really hope that's what happens, and it seemed that would be totally consistent with the resolution the council adopted. And in fact, if it wasn't in there, it would be contrary to the resolution unless the resolution is amended. The second point I'd like to make is with respect to the response to the comments that were submitted last night at the Plan Commission hearing. State law, and I'm not going to get into the details, basically says that the council, this body, should respond to written comments. And the efficient way to do that is to have staff prepare a response to comments and have that available prior to, for instance, March 6th, 4 days in advance of the hearing on March 10th. And so I really hope that this body will direct staff to prepare a response to comments. And that response to comments should be an appendix in this document. And the reason I'm suggesting this is because a year ago, I did extensive research in the files of the comp plan that was adopted 10 years ago. And there is some documentation, but there's a lot missing. And the reason is that there was no documentation ultimately made part of the plan. And I've seen this time and time again in other professional things I've been involved in, where an appendix with respect to the comments that were submitted on earlier versions is provided so that people understand how that got in there. And so with that, I guess I will wrap it up, and thank you again for the opportunity to offer these insights this evening.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Up next is Jason McGill, also wishing to speak on the draft comprehensive plan.
Hello, Jason McGill, KJK Realty. Company's based out of Fitchburg, but I live in Oregon. I've been tasked with the opportunity to try to sell some land that is in the city of Fitchburg, just north of Oregon, south of M, kind of in between the rail and Highway MM. So there's about 130 acres there. The highest and best use could be ag land, but it's flat next to a rail, next to the main street, possible middle school going to be built sometime in the near future. It just seems to make sense that maybe this land could have a better, highest and best use that could benefit both communities. Did some preliminary talks with the Village of Oregon officials, and they would be interested in maybe seeing if a win-win situation could be created. Nothing committed, just an idea of maybe Fitchburg and Oregon can come together. It's in the city of Fitchburg, but somehow create a win-win with a study plan to see if both communities can benefit from this. So no utilities are down there yet. Oregon has the utilities right there at the property line, but again, Jeff Rowell from Public Works, Jeannie Carpenter, Village President, all kind of had these conversations. Well, if a win-win could be created, it would be great to see both communities benefit from this. So that's why I sit before you today, is just maybe you might want to entertain the idea of seeing if a win-win situation can be created. It seems that there's this huge habit of saying no to this area, and I would love to see maybe a what if instead of a no. So that's why I'm here. Keep it short and sweet. I'm Jason. Thanks, guys, for your time.
Okay, hey, thanks a lot, Jason.
Oh, questions? I forgot.
Anyone have a question? Okay, there are no questions at this time.
I'm quick and blunt and to the point, and I think it's pretty obvious what I'm trying to create here, so. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next is our draft comprehensive plan presentation, and the Director of Planning, Sonia Creasel, is here to give a presentation, followed by a committee of the whole discussion.
Thank you, Council. We are in the adoption stages of the comp plan after over 30 public meetings and approximately 6 to 8 months of work on the update. So tonight will be an opportunity to summarize both the big picture, major changes, as well as to get into the finer details as desired by the council. My comments will be relatively short and sweet as well, just to allow you the opportunity to take the comments where you want them or points that you want to discuss in more detail. The Plan Commission did vote last night on the draft comp plan that was included in your packets, and the vote was 5 votes in favor with 1 opposed to recommend adoption of Growing Fitchburg 2020. They had a handful of changes, so I'll get to those at the end of my comments as well. But before I summarize the changes, I wanted to start with something we provided at our very first meeting on this project back in May. We handed out this document put together by Vandewall and Associates, which uses the co-evolution of the City of Fitchburg and Promega Corporation to tell a story about maintaining a bold vision and implementing a plan over the long term. So I just wanted to read a few brief excerpts to illustrate the point before we get into details. The piece reads, and you can go to the next slide. Over the last 35 years, the City of Fitchburg has grown from a handful of rural hamlets into an energetic young city. It has become a thriving community where numerous successful businesses, young professional talent, and families now reside. One influence stands out as distinct and evident in the city's vision, emerging culture, ecological sensibilities, and even its dominant architectural styles. The synergistic co-evolution of the City of Fitchburg and Promega Corporation has been critical to shaping this young modern city. Promega's presence can be traced back to 1978 when the company's founder moved into the town. The town was not always destined to be a biotech and advanced manufacturing hub. Historically a farming community, the 35-square-mile town endeavored to become a city in its own right to manage ever-increasing development pressure from neighboring Madison. Instead of conceding to these development pressures, leaders in the town of Fitchburg opted to incorporate and create distinct development path for itself. Fitchburg leaders hope to preserve its agricultural heritage while at the same time becoming a technology-driven community. Through a mutual vision, leaders placed a high value on making land use decisions with a 50 to 100-year context in mind. Together with Promega, the city embraced the vision for a central tech campus, approved a plan for the area, and established a TIF district to fund roads and other utilities. With that, Fitchburg Center was born, embarking upon a symbiotic path with a common long-term view towards sustainable community development and economic viability. This vision expands beyond the Civic Center where we sit today. Next slide, please, and one more. The successful development of Fitchburg Center served as the catalyst for additional growth and helped strengthen the community's commitment to its long-term vision. Next slide. And that vision expanded to the east as a new Fitchburg technology neighborhood. Fitchburg has also proven that it's far more than a Madison bedroom community. It is now a full-service city that continues to find itself on a well-aimed trajectory, yet there's still plenty of room to grow. After 35 years, half of Fitchburg Center is yet to be developed. With the foundation built and ample capacity to meet the needs and opportunities of the future, it will be intriguing to see how the next 35 years unfold. So again, I think this story really communicates a real example of Fitchburg, a young community creating a sense of place as we continue to mature and refine our development areas. In our public input process for this plan update, we heard a lot of comments that echo that sentiment. For example, residents stated that we still actually have the ability to plan for the future in an orderly fashion, with comments that support the continued preservation of our urban versus rural character and support for the revitalization of existing development. So the point, again, being it takes time for a sense of place to evolve, and it takes time to implement a long-range plan, and it speaks to the importance of maintaining that unified vision as elected officials make decisions moving forward. So you can go ahead, and one more. So again, after 6 months, over 30 public meetings, we now have a recommended plan for adoption that complies with the scope and timeline approved by the Common Council. Overall, I've summarized the main themes on this screen, 5 of them. That is continuation of the planned orderly growth of the last 10 years, encouraging healthy, balanced neighborhoods, maintaining the rural character, emphasizing redevelopment and improvement of existing neighborhoods and commercial nodes, and finally, increasing flexibility where appropriate. For example, increasing opportunities for amendments more than one time per year. And I think the growth principles, which we've drafted and made a focal point of the plan, they're shown on the screen. Those dovetail nicely with the main themes of the plan, those being sustainability, equity, cooperation, and vibrancy. So like the Promega story, we've maintained an overall objective plan, but through this process, made some refinements. So on to those refinements, and I've highlighted just 8 main changes, and these follow the memo that was emailed out to the council earlier today. I do have just 3 printed copies if anyone needs one. I just couldn't print enough, having printer issues earlier. So this just follows that in line. So the first, of course, is the most visible change, and that's reorganization of the plan. The goal, as we described when we were going through this, was to simplify the document into how we grow and where we grow, as well as the middle sections being the pillars of growth and the tools of growth. This, we feel, increased accessibility, modernized the document, and reduced redundancy. We were able to reference a lot of the planning documents that have been developed over the past 10 years without increasing the length or copying all of that information verbatim. Overall, the plan was reduced by about 70 pages. The second major change are those on the draft future land use map, and there are 4 of them. There are 2 that are really qualify as minor amendments, which we could usually accommodate in our annual process. And these 2 minor amendments, after discussion with the Plan Commission, were generally found to be consistent with other planning documents and efforts, or consistent with their neighborhood context. So those are the 2 that are listed as C and D on the screen. One is for Promega, which is a 9.5-acre parcel near the city center area along Gunflint Trail. And the proposal there was to change the future land use from LDR and MDR, low-density residential and medium-density residential, to industrial commercial. And that would enable Promega to pursue rezoning requests for further biotech and medical research facilities. And the other example that's really minor is a minor parcel change is the charter school on Index Road on the northern part of the community. And our earlier presenter, Nancy, referenced this as the Milestone Democratic School. So this would change the future land use of that one parcel from business to, from industrial general to business. And that also would allow the school to pursue their rezoning requests. The other 2 changes are a little bit different. These are really something that would generally be considered in a larger planning process, a more major update. But after After discussion amongst the public, the Plan Commission, and the council, it was determined that these are of generational importance or of importance enough to the public and to the community that they could be considered with this major update process as individual parcel changes. And those, as you know, are Edgewood, just south of Lacey and west of Seminole Highway. That would be allow Edgewood to pursue required applications to develop their athletic complex. And then the other changes for Oregon School District, they acquired 107 acres near the, at the far southern edge of Fitchburg's boundary with the village of Oregon, and that would be for potential development of a middle school. Both of those projects have some additional work to do. They will need to prepare all of the detailed required materials by CARPC, the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, and then submit that request, work with the city to apply for an urban service area amendment. That process includes proving to the Regional Plan Commission and the DNR that the additional land is necessary and how they meet a variety of requirements. Once that urban service area amendment is approved and adopted, then they may proceed with their city entitlements. So that would be rezoning and the more detailed site plan review that we haven't seen at all to date, things like traffic or impervious surface and all of those items that we generally review in the entitlement process. So those are the 4 changes included on the draft map and the only changes. Major change number 3 was this differentiation between minor amendments and a major update. The goal here was to clarify something that may have been confusing in the past and to just draw a clear line. So the minor amendments are reserved for changes to parcel-specific future land uses within the urban service area. And on the other hand, a major update would be something like we're doing now, something that's required by state law every 10 years, and it could be a range of things. It could be reviewing future urban development areas, in which case we've provided a list of guidelines and suggested procedures for considering something like that. Or it could be just an update of census data or a review of policies. So in the case of reviewing future urban development areas, we've identified some triggering mechanisms for why you might consider such a change, and that might be inadequate supply of land or a major shift of conditions politically, socially, economically, or maybe some major changes in regional land use planning. For example, if the bus rapid transit line comes to fruition through our central corridor, that might be something so impactful that our major transportation corridor shifts from the Highway 14 area to the Fish Hatchery Road area. So again, major update being something that we really want to have the city proactively lead, be founded with objective data, and have good public input. The goal is not to use that process to accommodate the individual interests of any one private property owner. Again, a holistic view at the city. Major change number 4 was allowing minor amendments more than once per year. Every year for the past 10 years, we've just allowed applications to be submitted for this once. We've heard a lot of feedback that doesn't really align well with our construction schedules. There might be really good development projects that the community as a whole supports, and this will enable us to have the flexibility to consider those more frequently. I think this is a really good example of that procedural and administrative flexibility that we can definitely accommodate while still maintaining the overall predictability and orderly process of the plan. Major change number 5, we've added some guidelines for review of minor amendments. These can be found in Chapter 5, the implementation section. And the purpose of these was to provide an objective list of principles that both the Plan Commission and the Council can use when they're considering a minor amendment on that biannual process. This was just a really simple attempt to address some of the conflict situation that we found ourselves in between the Plan Commission, the Council, staff, and the public. Trying to provide some objective principles or the same playbook that people can read from. And it's also not meant to be rigid or tie the elected officials or appointed officials' hands in any way. It's simply an objective list that we can all read from. Major change number 6 was referenced earlier, and this is regarding the Plan Commission versus the Common Council's authority on amending the plan. There are 2 different versions shown on the screen here, one with red text and one with blue. The red text was originally drafted by staff to clarify the city attorney's opinion for the last 10 years, as well as the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Again, just to clarify things and make sure that we're not going over the same questions over and over. So this clarified that opinion. It states that the council may make only technical changes to the Plan Commission's recommended version of a plan amendment. Those changes can't be substantive. And then it defines substantive as something that affects the use of land or makes a qualitative change in the plan, or generally something that affects someone's private property rights. After public review and comment and the council's approved resolution, we included the language in blue, which more or less reverts to the language that was included in the 2009 document, not clarifying or supporting the current city attorney's opinion. I'll note that state law hasn't changed, and so our city attorney's opinion also has not changed, her interpretation of that statute. So her advice theoretically would still be the same to this council or any council in the future. But what it does do is allow the council the flexibility to essentially disagree with their legal counsel, or if case law were to occur, or if statute were to change in the future, this would just be a little bit more flexible in that regard. When the Plan Commission voted last night, they did recommend changing the language back to the one shown in red. So those 6 changes are really things that the council has seen before in various meetings. Number 7 has been out there for a little while as well, but this was newer information that we got to later in the process. So the Plan Commission was able to go through these changes page by page. Rather than doing that tonight, I've provided that memo, which highlights all of the changes by email. So there are 29 specific policies that were changed. These are the goals, objectives, and policies located throughout the entire document. And these changes came specifically from the various 30 public input meetings that we had, from the 10 city committee meetings, and other staff and just city agencies. I summarized them here. They're a group that really reference balanced housing, so there are some changes that reference increasing or providing a diverse mix of housing. There are a handful of policies that recommend that we ensure there's adequate land for industrial development. There are a handful of policy changes that reference agricultural uses, including perhaps enhancement of agricultural uses through ag research, or maybe being just a little bit more flexible as long as those uses are still consistent with our agricultural zoning districts, and which are guided by the Farmland Preservation Statute, Chapter 91. There are also a handful of policy changes that reference transportation. So we included reference, we talk about our transit corridor, the rail corridor along Highway 14. If rail were never to come to fruition or that type of transit, we just expanded that policy to talk about alternatives that would achieve the same purpose. For example, bus rapid transit, if that did come down Fish Hatchery Road. We also talked about, in that group of changes, encouraging or expanding availability for electric vehicle markets, so increasing charging stations in our city facilities or in development review processes, for example. Also encouraging a new shared ride program for east-west transportation after the last one that we piloted. There's also a new policy regarding a recommendation to develop a comprehensive sustainability plan. So we found in the document that there were various sort of picked and chosen recommendations for solar ordinance or a wind ordinance, or these other sort of sustainable transportation policies, energy planning. But rather than take any of those in a one-off sort of capacity, looking at those as a whole and putting forth a strategic plan to address those issues. That was also supported by various committees. And then the last two are a little bit different. So also through committee review, we heard about some potential for an airport with the city of Fitchburg's sort of unique location in the region, and that there might be some benefit to the community there or feasibility for a municipal airport in the future. While siting of this, of course, would be very detailed, subject to FFA regulations and to a ton of public input. I envision there would be a whole separate planning process and information session if this were ever to become a reality. But at least what it does is reference that in the comp plan as something that the council could consider. And then finally, the last one is regarding our rural development policy. The current plan has a policy that says any development in our rural areas must be limited to that which is consistent with the RRDC. And that's our policy that allows only limited rural residential development or new land splits. That's been interpreted very strictly to prohibit other developments in the ag area. And rightfully so, because a lot of the public input that we've received and tenets that the plan is based on support ag preservation. But there are some other uses, such as what I've listed, a wedding barn that might support the goals of our agricultural plan, something that is really dependent on ag land. A wedding barn wouldn't necessarily be proposed if it wasn't on agricultural land, or something that could support rural tourism or those types of other economic development opportunities for the city. So we amended that policy to still keep a tight sort of control on things by allowing other uses as which may be amended in our agricultural zoning districts. So in the future, it's a policy that would be vetted through the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee, the Plan Commission, and the Council. If we amended, for example, our small lot agricultural zoning district to allow wedding barns as a conditional use, that detail would be further vetted, but this policy would allow that to be brought forward. And like I mentioned, there are 29 specific policies. We can walk through them individually. I believe Pat has the memo that we can bring up on the screen. And then number 8, this came out of the Plan Commission motion last night. There was just a handful of technical changes. These can be found in attachment B to the memo that was emailed, and they're very, very minor, updating watershed names, correcting some things on maps, as well as some changes under item C that came out of Plan Commission. Again, typos, making sure it says kilowatt hours instead of kilowatts, filling in a blank chart, et cetera. And then item B was the most substantial, but again, I wouldn't anticipate any concerns. It was simply making an edit to one of the minor amendment review guidelines that we talked about to encourage, if you wouldn't mind going back a slide. No problem. That one, item B, we added the last clause that says, and any adopted neighborhood plans. So this is just a review guideline when you're looking at that minor parcel amendment. Development resulting should be consistent with the physical character of the surrounding neighborhood, as well as any adopted neighborhood plans to make sure that we're consistent with the long-range vision that was adopted there. We already reviewed this. Again, Plan Commission adopted 5-1, with the most substantial change being the Plan Commission versus Common Council authority, as well as all of the technical changes on the previous slides. And then next steps would be, this is just an informational discussion tonight, of course, no action. If you have any specific policy changes or additions that you want to discuss, I know some of you do, it would be a good opportunity to go through those. And then we'll publish a Class 1 notice. There's a required 30-day public comment period that must be held per statute prior to the council's public hearing. And that public hearing is scheduled for March 10th. So action could be taken on that night. Provided some guidance for the public on how to submit written comments. It's not required. They can, of course, come to the public hearing and provide verbal testimony. But if written comments are desired, those can be sent by email to planning@fitchburgwi.gov. Or in person or hard copy to Fitchburg City Hall.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, Sonia, thank you very much. And at this time, we'll move into questions and discussion. And I'll call on Alder Radefrada.
Yes, thank you. So I am passing some of my recommendations to some of the policy. I reference them to a chapter and page and the policy recommendation. I sent this to Sonia this morning, and she reviewed some of the stuff. I incorporated some of the changes. Everything that is in red is because it's the thing that I would like to add. It's a new thing in the language. So I don't know, Sonia, how you want to do this.
Would you be willing to walk through what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. And then if we can put the comprehensive plan.
Sorry, what's that, Julio?
We need to put the comprehensive plan on. You go to the Fitchburg website, and then from there you can grab it. So the first one item we are going to start is in the first chapter, is growing Fitchburg. And there are a couple of demographics graph, and one of them incorporates, it doesn't mention the Latinos. Latino, we are 70% of the population in Fitchburg, and the Latinos are included with the 75% of the white race, but this is what I talked to Sonia, that I have seen graph when we are split all the demographic, the races, so we should find a better graph for that. What happened? That's it, that one. The second, the second item is in the chapter 2, housing, is on 2A-7. It's under policy 122. And then what I want to add here is encourage the use of private and public, and then in parentheses, TIF, programs to meet the needs of low-income persons. Consider extending the life of a tax incremental district by 1 year to benefit the Affordable Housing Fund. So what I want to add is something that we discussed in CEDA, we discussed in Plan Commission, and another commission about how we can start building up the housing fund to at least, to promote affordable workforce housing in Fitchburg. So we did this in the past. We have done this. So the idea is how we can, include it in the plan. Okay. The third item that I have is on Chapter 2, housing, is 2A-8, is under policy 123, provide a smaller lot that encourages sustainable land use and which may assist in the provision of affordable workforce housing for everyone. I would like to remove the word that is a remote low-income person because, I would prefer to use the word for everyone or finish the sentence after housing, So Sonia recommended to finish after housing. Do you know where to find those?
I'm here, it's just, we got some blank pages in between.
Oh, okay.
So 2A. 8?
2A-8.
All right, I'll get there right now.
Okay. You're close.
Yeah.
Close. Okay, yes, I see this. It's policy 123.
Yeah,
You found it?
well, that's 1, 3.
Up. That one. Oh, okay. Then go down a little bit more. It's the first one on the second page. There.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so so that one is the policy that I would like to add the word workforce housing for everyone and remove the low-income person. Okay. The next item is number 4 is housing. It's under the chapter 2 housing 2A-9. Do you have that? Is I would like to add here is at the end of this chapter. I would like to add something that is not in the plan, is form a community land trust fund that can develop long-term affordable workforce housing in Fitchburg. This is something that we also discussed in CEDA, that we would like to eventually have this land trust, and maybe we can incorporate this language here. And then the next item is a new one. It's not there, and it's housing. I will say is still after the second chapter. Is add review various development fee and consider waivers or reduction to encourage affordable home ownership opportunity. So the idea is, I was reviewing and taking a look at Sun Prairie and Middleton Comprehensive Plan and Madison, and they have this type of language on the plan where if they want to promote affordable housing, the cities are reducing some of the fee, so to promote this type of development, because sometimes we hear from the developers or some agency, that housing agency, that sometimes some of the fee are very costly and add to the the land fee, So that one could be something that we can consider. I would like to see this language. The other one is number 6, is also something that I would like to add, and is promote opportunity for first-time buyers through a housing city fund. We mentioned in this plan a couple of times in the housing chapter about creating a housing city fund. So this is what I would like to add also, I don't know, in that, or promote opportunity for first-time buyers through a housing city fund. And how we are going to build this city housing fund is with keep 1 year some of the tax incremental districts open by a year to benefit the affordable housing fund that I already mentioned. Number 7 is on the next chapter, I think it's in jobs and education, is 2B-6. This is the organization changed the name from Thrive to MARREP. So we talked to Sonia, and this is a cosmetic. Next, item 8 is under jobs and education chapter, is 2B-8. This is an input that it comes from CEDA. We want to emphasize or encourage due consideration of industrial and commercial land uses in planning for the South Stony Prairie neighborhood. We want to be sure that the South Stony Prairie neighborhood is coming in the pipeline for the next neighborhood to be studied or developed. 9, under jobs and education chapter, 2B-9. This is something that I already talked to Sonia, and Wade is working on this, is they mentioned on the major corridors gateways. It would be nice if we specify which one are those. 10, under jobs and education chapter, 2B-10, under technology, I would like to include what is the plan for 5G in the city, something that we discussed in CEDA several times, when the city had to be prepared for this. It could be 5G, or 5G is coming. Yeah. I discussed that with the mayor too. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Number 12 is under the jobs and education chapter, 2B-13, is under policy 1.51.1. I would like to add some language is maintain a database of improved and available commercial and industrial sites, and provide with toolkits or site-ready site, like a shovel-ready site, So I would like to add that language. Number 13, under the jobs and education chapter, 2B-14, policy 223, we talk about promote clean industrial manufacturing use and ensuring the city has adequate supply of land for industrial. This is a question about this policy, and I would like to know what it means to be adequate. You know what I mean? What does it mean? Yeah. It's for clarification point, okay? Number 14, under transportation, policy 3.4-10, support exploration of development of municipal airport. Add the word municipal, because we are not going to have a regional airport here, you know what I mean? So we need to identify what type of airport. Number 15, under the resources, energy, and communication chapter, 3B-18, that something that we need to change. It's a minor, it's a cosmetic change from 10-year capital improvement, because it was we used to have a 5-year capital improvement plan, and we changed it 2 years ago, but it was, yeah, we put 10. 16, under the government chapter, oh no, I already done that. And then 17, okay. Under the chapter that is where will Fitchburg grow, 4-17, when we talk about the future land use map, I was thinking that something when I was in Plan Commission, we discussed this, and then with all the, what happened in the last 2 years and people complaining about what does it mean to be high density or no. So I was thinking maybe we can discuss this and add another high density residential category. Now we say that current is over unit per acre to the sky. We don't have a limit. So maybe we can have a 2 category. One is HDR category low from 9 unit to 20 units, and then we should have another one, HDR category high, above 20 units. This is something for discussion. I would like to know what the council think about that. So these are my points.
Okay, well, Julia did some homework. Is there anyone else who would like to discuss any issues or ask questions of Sonia? Or did you want to?
Yeah, just in addition, there's a question from the public just procedurally. We're not necessarily voting on any of these changes today, so just wanted to make sure that's clear, but it is a good opportunity that if you have changes for us to take a look at them. And if you want to make those changes at the March public hearing, you would need to make a motion to make those edits.
So she could come forward with amendments to the plan.
Yep, and it could look just like this tonight, but this is a good, yep, but this is a good sort of preview of what you're interested
Share
in.
with youth or if you know.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask questions or speak, discuss? Dorothy? Elder Dorothy?
Okay. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a list I've already sent her, so she's semi-familiar. First is on page 15. Yeah, section 1, page 5.
Dorothy? No, no supplemental materials.
Does that have bookmarks that you can open?
If you know the do you know the PDF number, page number of your changes?
I don't.
Okay.
It's not on the hard copy.
Aye.
Yes,
Is it a population chart?
yes.
So sort of at the beginning, let's see where you're at. I think you want to go down.
This is page 30.
So just watch the bottom right corners.
Yeah, I see that.
So actually, it's page 18.
Yeah. All right, it's going
One
up
more.
there. Hold on. One more?
Yeah, up from there a bit, above the chart with the diagonal.
Right here?
Yep,
Okay.
go just above there, like 3 lines above it. And this is one that she already did a yikes to today. The city covers 35 square miles, not 25.
That's right.
Next is going to go up to 2A4. in the lower circle,
Right there?
up. That circle,
Pie chart?
correct.
Okay.
The question was, do we want to use the word kids in a formal document, or should we use children?
Sure, children would be better.
Okay. And then 2A5, the next page. Maintenance of and reinvestment in multifamily housing stock in northern neighborhoods while maintaining affordability.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. Can you repeat what, under maintenance and reinvestment, you said?
Correct. In multifamily housing stock in northern neighborhoods, I would like to add while maintaining affordability.
Okay.
Next is down to page 2A4.
2A4, we were just
Oh,
on.
back to 2A4, sorry.
Okay.
Or was I there already?
You were
Yeah,
there before.
I'm sorry. 2A7 then.
Okay.
And at the very bottom, or to policy 2,
1.2?
oh, right, the bottom,
It's cut off, yeah.
Last night, yeah.
yeah, that's right, okay.
Okay.
There's just a second line of policy
And to-
1.22.
That's it?
All right, and she's got my notes and she can ask me more. I had another question on there as well. 2A8,
2A8?
correct, the next page.
Yep.
In policy 132, says undertake redevelopment plans to focus on specific areas of city, and again, while maintaining affordability.
If I could.
Go ahead.
Should we make that just a general theme instead of a redundant statement throughout each one of these points that that'll be one of the main focuses is affordability? I don't know how we do that, but instead of repeating it over and over again.
Sure, yeah, I think there's general language throughout the plan that does that, and also our growth policies that talk about equity. But if it is something that the alders want to more specifically be able to point to in a policy, then you could do that.
And again, she's got my copy of this, and she'll consider and we'll talk. Just under that, in 134, consider a creation of city fund to lend money at low interest rates in the form of a second mortgage to assist in energy conservation updates for low-income residents. I'm adding or for down payment for low-income home purchases. In 2B6, okay, down to where it says thrive under, where she was going to change that. I wanted to also add organizations, Black and Latino Chamber, as community area of influence. To be 9. Kind of As a general question, I wrote, the city is responsible for business and jobs. Can we reflect that more fully under healthy neighborhoods? That one of the charges of the city is business development. And I don't see as much in the entire document as I'd like to about promoting business development. I see a lot about jobs, but I don't see business development, whether from the entrepreneurial or for live-work housing or bringing businesses to the city. Okay, I was gonna skip the next. This one was backing up, 2B7. Question was, we have other educational institutions, like we have a painters and allied trades union training facility. Do we want to add those sorts of private education opportunities into the list?
I think we can talk about that, but then I think we get into all sorts of other educational opportunities like hairstyling and everything else. So, but it's something we can talk about.
Sonia, so in this area in education, we are only talking about public education?
Generally, those are the types of things that we would inventory in the comp plan.
Okay, because we have some private school here in Fitchburg. So I don't know, this is what I am asking.
Sure.
Because we have Eagle School, it's. Oh, yeah, yeah. And maybe the new one in Index Road, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Then up to 2B9. Oh, no, we already got that one. Let me cross it off. 2B10. Under sector promotion, I'd like to add service.
I would say professional and services.
We have a lot of health education jobs. I'd consider any kind of restaurants and things like that to be service-oriented jobs, businesses. The very last line, or last sentence on that page, same page, including planning for potential future locations of public or private school facilities. And then up to 2B12. Under 117, I'd like to add a new 118 and add live-work housing zoning. And then renumber the current 118.
What is the name of the one people?
And I've got another sentence as part of that she'll see. I guess I'm backing up again, 2B10. No, I've got that. Oh, 2B15. It's going to be adding new objective 2.4. I've got or 2.1 and renumber the rest. Identify preferred development options in various areas of the city. And then in parentheses, because it's not final language, and go shopping for them. That's something that Mike C. has heard from me a bunch of times. If we know we want a bank at a certain place, go looking for a bank. On 2B15, it's a new objective.
Can she share that with us too?
Yeah,
What's that?
it's pretty scrawly. She asked if she could get my list. I said yes.
Yeah. The attachment that I received earlier didn't open properly, so I don't have it available now.
Oh, okay.
Something like that and share with all the elders. I don't know.
Well, I was doing this at the dining room table rather than in front of my computer, so I was handwriting. 2C7. And this is a new recreation theme. The city should strive to provide recreational opportunities that are easily accessed and affordable to low-income families, particularly in areas identified in the HNI. I had it as under community building, but wherever it would
Okay.
probably read best.
I'm just trying to stay in the right spot here.
Okay. Under 2C9. I've got add policy 1.3.3. Develop and maintain programs to control detrimental and encourage beneficial insects and other wildlife. So we talk about invasive plants in our parks, but we don't talk about how to control mosquitoes and Japanese beetles and critters. 3A4, I think it is. Yes. In the rail paragraph. So down into that paragraph. Yep. It mentions City of Madison and North Villages of Oregon and Brooklyn and other communities to the south. After that, I'd like to add in, given the line runs past the Alliant Energy Center and Monona Terrace, the line should be considered ideal for peak use and as a potential tourism opportunity. And in addition to my notes, I'm also giving her my book to look at later and go through, so you don't have to do complete notes.
Okay.
Okay. 3A14. Oh, stop at 3A12. Right at the bottom. I didn't like the term just passing through. I was going to suggest traveling through.
Sure.
Relatively minor, but still. Okay, then to 14. And this is under 323. Adding policy 324 to work with the DOT during design phase of state roadways to ensure adequate bike and ped accommodations. That did not happen with Verona Road. And I was interacting with the bike community, and they were kind of pissed that we weren't ahead of it, and they were trying to do mop-up with best design for Verona Road and having a really tough time with it.
Is on freeway.
But they also, how to navigate intersections
Okay.
and things was a problem.
All right.
So it wasn't given due consideration. 3A. No, 3A16. Under 353. Add to the end of that, encourage big box stores to include a designated park and ride option for the convenience of drivers who would like to shop before driving home. I know I've talked about that in the past. Also on 3A16. Oh, go ahead.
Asking for like a little clarification. What do you mean by that?
What I mean basically is if we should get a Costco, Costco would put up a sign saying that this would be a park and ride area. Hopefully it would be near their back door or something so that people would come and park in the morning, then they would get on bus. Presumably we'd make sure a bus stops right at the Costco, takes them off to work, brings them back from work. They do their shopping, and then they drive home. So it's convenience for drivers. It's marketing, more or less, for the store, and it gets people to use park and ride lots rather than trying to park wherever they're headed. Thanks. Again, on 16 at the bottom is a new policy. Again, this is for Tom. Encourage tourism use of rail line that runs past Alliant Energy Center, Monona Terrace, and potentially to the Dane County Airport. And if we can get that done, then we can talk about building major hotel down here that people would stay at and then jump on the high-speed rail to the tourism stops. They can get off their plane at the airport and take the rail line down to their hotel in Fitchburg. That's too perfect. 3B17. Just a real quick under 3.3. Okay. For the next draft to look at, we'll have bookmarks for each page, right?
What section?
Under 3.3 or within 3.3, provide for restoration of extraction sites for future development, comma, ag, comma, to leave off just general development. I think we need to add that in, just the word development. On objective 3.3, restoration of extraction sites for future development, comma, ag, comma, open space. Next page, 3B18. I'm looking. Under 415. Okay. Recharge the groundwater. Add on to that sentence, especially for the use of farm irrigation and/or industrial gray water. Next page, 3B19, under 511. At the end of that sentence, note any use of lead in existing services and remediate. Under 3C4. And in the box under Dane County. So down yet. I would like to add at least, okay, human services and senior services to that. And then I had in the box next to that, I had question, why are schools not mentioned? As various other governmental entities that we work with. I think schools, even though all you need is a reference to the earlier educational part. I'm talking schools.
Like a school district?
Mm-hmm, school
The
districts.
state of Wisconsin, though.
But you have the Department of Instruction.
Well, just as
I don't know.
with,
State schools would be the colleges and tech schools.
right, city also works with various other governmental entities.
Okay,
School boards are governmental entities.
so you're talking about having a different header.
Either that or a note referencing the earlier education section of the plan or something, so that people who don't come and look at this section without having seen that one don't scratch their head and wonder where it is.
Okay,
3 more. C39. And this was a question.
what policy you want?
Oh, sorry, 234.
Okay,
What does presumably Wade, when he wrote it, mean when he says to establish areas of community separation? I'm not certain what that term is saying.
This was something that was carried over from the original 2009 plan, and it generally talks about maintaining open space, or exactly what it's, a community separation between various municipalities. So between Verona, for example, City of Verona and City of Fitchburg, we have an extraterritorial area where we control land splits to prevent sort of development if we were to annex that area. One of the reasons why we prevent development in that area is to maintain that community separation or distinctiveness of different communities and character. It's a general sort of planning goal. It's found in a lot of municipal documents, but.
Might clarify that by using something like in residential areas. Because in our urban area, there ain't no separation. The separation is the paint line in the middle of the road.
And if you did want to apply it to urban areas, you could talk about a gateway feature on Fish Hatchery Road, for example, as something that would achieve that same goal, providing a distinctive place as you come from Madison into Fitchburg.
Yeah, I'd like Allied Drive to have that. 4:30. That's a bit of a scroll down.
Yeah, going quick here.
And this is the end of the first paragraph. So it says, land shall be deed restricted to not allow for more than one dwelling unit or non-farm use for every 35 acres. My question is that forever in the future? My concern that I think I'm betting that I've been seeing is people that are buying these larger rural lots. And I think they're probably going to sit on them for a number of years, and then when it becomes reasonably appropriate, divide it up into quarter-acre lots. And I want to acknowledge that possibility, prevent it, encourage it, say, I'm not certain what, but that note will be in my book for you to scratch your head over. Then on 436 is the last one I'm going to speak to. 436 and objective 2.2. And this comes back to specific restore underutilized, blighted, or undeveloped properties within current commercial or residential neighborhoods while maintaining or replacing in other areas affordability for current residents. So I don't mind if you want to knock down all the big buildings that have a gazillion or so apartments. We need to find somewhere else that the current residents can afford to live, rather than just saying, tough, go find somewhere else. There is nowhere else. There really isn't anywhere else for people to live. So that's all that I had, other than teeny tiny nitpicky things.
Okay, anybody else? We'll go to Sarah, Alder Sarah.
Sorry, I have 3 comments. The first one was just on page 15 within the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative. We state, page 15. And under the equitable heading, we state that they're living in 3 northern city neighborhoods have equitable access to opportunities. Since the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative is a 5-year pilot program, should we strike the word 3 to incorporate, to be able to be flexible, to add or remove? Just a question.
Sure.
That's it. Just Town of Madison, if that's a
Yeah, the
consideration.
Southdale,
I think it would make sense to just
Yeah.
make it
yeah.
vague.
Yeah,
For
yeah, it could be more, yeah.
page 59, under recreation, we have a policy 1.2.2 states encourage the planting and maintenance of trees within the park and open space system. I just had a question as to whether we could also add a call out and the management of invasive species specifically. We did list it under resources, but it lists public lands, and I think parks are probably the best access for public lands, so just a question there. And I sent you an email that I.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did, sorry, and I just did it, so
Okay.
I apologize.
Sure.
And my third comment, and these are just for consideration, is on page 80 within the resources area. For parking lots, policy 3.5.1, if it could be, and just for consideration, a comment added about avoiding heat islands for parking lots, and that just aligns with the tree canopy 30% goal referenced within 1.3.6 resources. So just a consideration that it seemed like there'd possibly be alignment there.
Sure.
But those are just my only 3 comments.
Okay.
Okay,
Might almost add in permeable pavement in areas where it would be appropriate with that.
Alder Janelle.
Only one, page 178, which the heading on that particular page is the minor amendments procedures. If we could modify point number 2 to read final sentence.
Chapter 5.
178. Point number 2. So if we could just scroll up a little bit. I think on behalf of North Stoner Prairie and Burnwood, I'd like to see that changed to 500 feet. So when we start getting into a section like fish hatchery, et cetera, we've got enough distance to make contact with those neighbors.
That may require a ordinance amendment, so we need to look at that.
Yeah, we generally require 300 feet for things in ordinance like zoning changes, but this one would be specific to comp plan amendments, so it would just be a change in this document.
Okay.
That's it.
Can I just actually add on to that same place? I believe that we also now reach out to the neighborhood associations and the heads of those, so maybe mention that as well.
Sure.
As another area that we could reach out to.
Okay, anybody else? Tom?
I guess I had a point of order a little bit, just a question. To clarify this, not only for myself, but I think the public, that's all. It has to do with, like Julia had 17, or whatever she had. She had a number of them. And Dorothy had some, and Sarah just had some. My question is, for the public, on the 10th, first of all, do you include these in with the draft that the Plan Commission passed last night? Everything that's been said here, but it hasn't been voted on, or that's where I'm going, that's all I'm going. How are we doing this? In other words, we had a number of alders here that had some suggestions. And you got to clarify this, not only for me, but I'm sure the public. Now, there's some good suggestions here. Do we come back on maybe I'm going to make this up, Mayor, I'm making this up, on the 10th, and have like you have in the budget, where you have your amendments, where they're listed, Dorothy has 7, Julie has 9 or whatever, and then we vote on them? Is that my thought, or how are we doing this?
Yeah, essentially, that's what I would expect, is on March 10th, you'll receive the recommended version from the Plan Commission, so what we went over, and then I would imagine you'd have some sort of attachment, whatever that looks like, we can still work through that with these amendments requested by individual alders, and then you could vote to include them or not.
I'm assuming you're going to do that separately or individually. You vote them up or down, and if they're voted up, then they go in the plan, and if they're voted down, then it's for another day. Hang on to them for 10 years. But is that my thought? I mean, is that kind of?
Yeah, I think that's great. The only other suggestion I would make if people are interested is I think you need to list them all out, but there might be 2 buckets. There's one bucket where it's stuff that not very controversial, seems pretty simple. Staff kind of thinks, yeah, no brainer, let's go ahead and do this. And there might be another list that is hopefully smaller of things that, yeah, you should probably talk about this. Maybe it's a little more policy, it's a little more substantial. It's enough where you might want to discuss it and then go line by line on those. Because like you said,
The
some of
only-
them I think make a lot of sense and are great, and there's a few that might just be, need a little more discussion.
The other point I have here, though, is the public, I think, has an opportunity, and they should have an opportunity to see what Alder's changed, or just like in the budget, you know, where, I know I'm kind of referring to that, but it's on kind of budget night where the Alders are on one page, you know, and it says, Julia's got these, and Tom's got these, or whatever, because, but here's my other question. If you bring these in on the 10th, between now and the 10th, when does the public get to see them? I mean, we're missing some links here. I'm sorry, I think we're missing some links. I'm just trying to close the gap. That's all.
Let's go to Leo.
I have one of my questions here when I was from yesterday Plan Commission and today is, so I'm gonna follow your thought, Tom, is because we have all this community meeting to gather the information, and I was thinking, we are gonna have a community meeting with all our neighborhoods that say, here is a draft, you know, not, you know what I mean, not like, the, you know what I mean, and inviting them like we did in separate district, and I said, these are the major changes, you know, like the presentation that you did today, plus adding other changes that we bring, but bring the community again and give it the feedback to them, because we inviting them to give us the feedback, but now it's like we are making all the decision, and here it is, that's it. How we are gonna, my question is, how would the public will have any input to the first draft? You know what I mean? I know that we are doing this, the public hearing, but I don't think that we are promoting those public hearings, that we're promoting the community meetings that people came. So my question is, I think we need to complete the circle and invite the public again, you know, and go to the public, go where they are with a small setting and say, this is the final product. What do you think? I don't know.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to follow your lead. You know, if you're going to put this out there for 30 days from the Plan Commission, let's do that first. Got it. Plan Commission passed this. This is what it is. I'm assuming maybe you're going to put down another red version, whatever you want to call it. These are the Alder's changes.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they changed in the draft, so the public can also see it.
Oh, they want
And then you bring everything back on the 10th. Is that, I'm missing something here.
So 2 points in terms of another community meeting. It's not something that was specifically anticipated that we would go back out, additional staff resources to host those meetings. It was a lot of planning. If you were looking at something more substantial, sort of along those lines, we did hold the open house in November, which was sort of that intent, and it included all of the changes 1 through 6, except for these goals, objectives, and policy modifications. So at that time, the draft plan did include all of those changes. And all of these goals, objectives, and policies, as we're looking at them, we should consider whether they align with the public input we've received or not. And then finally, the statutory procedures required for adopting a plan do provide for that public input. The public hearing held at Plan Commission, as well as the public hearing held at Council in the 30-day comment period. So that is what we anticipated doing.
yesterday was, can I speak?
Go ahead.
Yesterday was the public hearing, and there were 2 people show up, you know what I mean? I know, but this is, what I want to say, this is not a zoning change or, or architecture design, whatever it is. This is the comprehensive plan, and we mentioned to the people that we were in, we asked for their input. This is a community, revision, and it's like we are, I think we are, we need to tell them, what is the final product. I know that we had the November, what is what you call that?
Open house.
Open house, but I think we should have another open house and saying, this is the final product, this is because we add more stuff, from November to now. We have some of the elder here, we have a lot of recommendations that we want to include. So So I think that what I am asking is, it's nothing out of control, you know, and it's something like, you know, if we want to be more transparent and we want to be more involved with the community and, you know, I think to have another open house, you know, to inform that this is the kind of the final product, it should be a good thing. I don't know. I know the resource, I know it was in the plan, but this is the comprehensive plan. We are not going to touch this document in another 10 years. I think the public deserves to hear, you know, and to promote those meetings better to come. I don't know, this is my 2 cents.
Okay, anybody else? Dorothy? Oh, sorry, Aaron, and then Dorothy. Sorry.
I've had my hand up since before she spoke,
Apologize. Go ahead.
long ago.
It's okay, it's all right. Dorothy, go ahead.
What I was presuming would happen would be that staff would take our suggestions and plans suggestions from last night, incorporate them as appropriate with a new red line version that they then would present to us.
No. No, any changes to this document would have to be formal amendments by the council, unless it was
Well,
clerical.
I would have liked this opportunity earlier in the process then.
Can I talk? And this is what was, no, we need to be transparent with the public. Oh, you were next? I'm sorry, okay. What I want to mention is, I requested to the mayor to have a special meeting before this draft went to Plan Commission because of what is happening right now. We should have had that discussion, the council first, put a recommendation and send it to Plan Commission, and then they can vote. No, they voted first, it's come to us, we have all these recommendations to put in the plan, and now we had to do it through an amendment. And we don't know how we're gonna do it. So I want to clarify that. That's it.
Okay, we'll go to the mayor.
Oh, I get to talk, thanks. So I think all these changes, and frankly, there's going to be comments and feedback from the public as well, need to be on the website. And I think that's probably the intention, is to have that list, and whether it's one document or for each person a document. And I think that's important because there's even stuff from the community that's going to be out here, and well, people want to see this, people in the community want to see this. There might be some things that have been brought up tonight that people in the community might say, no, I don't really like that one. And we gotta make sure that they have that available and they can see that as well. So I think that's a key piece of it. It can't just be all of a sudden the 10th, oh, here's all the stuff together. You want to have that out there as soon as possible, which I think is the intent. But I want to make sure that people understand it's not like, oh, this is just going to all of a sudden show up on the 10th. We need to have that list out here so people can see it. And there's going to be some stuff that, most of the stuff actually tonight I think makes a lot of sense. And there's a few things that we'll want to talk about more, and whether or not we do that before, or staff maybe kind of a recommendation that, yeah, these things we should just implement, and these things we want you to talk about more. But I think anything that comes in, and any feedback from the public, frankly, needs to be available on the website as it happens, because we can't just have this show up on the 10th, anything.
Okay, I got Dorothy, then Julia.
So my question is, when we make up our formal list, am I going to include things like on C37, remove extra period in first paragraph?
No, those are typos. We can handle that administratively.
So when you go through mine, can you feed me back what you want me to make a formal list of?
Yep.
And we can do it that way? All right.
Okay, Julia?
So my question is, I have you mentioned about we have this in the website, okay? So we need to think about all our residents, okay? So there are people that they are not going to be able to go to the website. They don't know how to go to the website, So I think we need to be more inclusive, and maybe we need to have copies of the comprehensive plan in the senior center, in the library, here on the front desk, So I don't know, look at other strategic places in the city where we can take a copy, 1 or 2 copies, and then people can can read it, because if you have to do it in your home, in your own computer and download, it's a huge document, sometimes you don't have good connection, you cannot download this in. And we have an elderly population that maybe they are no, they don't know how to navigate the website or to look, but we have a couple of copies in the senior center, in the library. People can go and read it. I don't know, they are ideas. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? We got Tom?
Mayor, I'm not trying to open up a can of worms as much as just to clarify it, that's all. So what you're saying, did I hear you right, that the planners passed the plan? I'm looking at 30 days, I'm looking at March 10th, but then also what you heard tonight from the alders would be included in that plan somewhere, somehow, for the public to see before the 10th? Do I have that right?
It wouldn't be, there'd be a list of those changes available as well. It wouldn't necessarily be immediately put into the plan because Planning Commission didn't necessarily vote to that. Us as a council will have to vote on the changes tonight that were recommended, but it would be available so that people could see that before.
All right, let's take it the next step. I realize tonight we're not voting, I get it. But then, on the 10th, are we gonna have the opportunity to go through each one of these individually, kind of on a page or whatever, and look at them and say up or down?
Yeah, I think.
Is that,
Yeah, I think so. I
Sonia,
think we need to do that.
Yeah, yep, and
thought?
so again, my sort of summary understanding is that you're going to have a document dated draft March 10th, 2020, and then you're going to have some supporting documents, separate attachments that list the changes made by the Plan Commission and the changes made by each of you, and then you can vote on
I think
those.
that, if there's questions up here, there's gotta be questions in the public. And the further statement, and I really don't want to go to Washington. I really don't. But you don't want to pass the plan to read it. You don't want to do that. And the deal is like, I just have a couple. I don't have a lot. I just have a couple. Even like Julie, I have a question for you. My first comment is what CETA brought forward I thought was good. I thought CETA had some good things that they brought forward to the plan. Now, what I saw you bring forward tonight, was that from CETA or was that just from you?
It was a combination, mine and some of the CETA that I didn't see here.
Okay, that's fair, okay.
But
And see,
tomorrow-
Dorothy's, I'll be honest, and I'm sure if I didn't hear them all, just because the way you were speaking tonight, some of the public didn't either. And that's why I was just saying about putting them together or whatever. It was, just to clarify it. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
I just have two quick ones, unless somebody has something else on this.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
On something else on this. On the major update procedures, I got an old form. You might, Sonia, you might even know. Can I just read you this one sentence? It's just one sentence. Major updates may occur more frequently than every 10 years. However, this is the part. It is recommended that major updates occur no more frequently than once every 5 years. Do you know where that is? Maybe it's in front of me.
It's on page 161 of the PDF or page 55, and
Okay.
it is right up there.
Here's my question on this one. It's just this one sentence that I'd like to change, and it says, it is recommended that major updates occur no more frequently than once every 5 years, okay? This is where your flexibility, you've been good. I think the city's been good about the flexibility to the plan. I do. I was real concerned that you took out approximately 95 pages of the old plan. That's a lot of pages we took out. I think with every 5 years, it straitjackets the city. It gives us more restriction that we don't want. So, again, if more frequently every 5 years, I'm just saying we can talk about the wording or what's good for the city. I know it kind of opened up a big door there. I get that. But to me, it's what's important to the city, not my district, not the next district next to me, but the whole city. And I think that straitjackets the city. That's my question.
Sure.
If you can maybe,
So a point of information, so just like Julia and Dorothy and Sarah did, you know, they have some suggestions of changes that could come forward, sort of like an amendment to a budget. You know, it's like you're amending. You could bring that forward to change it.
I just did.
Sure.
So, yeah.
This is a good opportunity to give us all a preview of those things, and then we'll get those into a formal document. But just to comment on that, I mean, you could strike that section of the sentence, and it wouldn't change any requirement of the plan or required procedure. The intent of adding it there was to just emphasize that a major update is exactly that. It's a major expenditure of city resources and time and public input as well. And for such a comprehensive plan, in order to undertake something so major that changes direction, it wouldn't be expected that it would occur more frequently than every 5 years. And this doesn't necessarily tie your hands or bind the city in any way.
But you know, it's
you may still update it more frequently.
keep in mind, I think this is real important for everybody up here. I think she just explained it pretty well, but she may not be here in 10 years. And everybody up here is not here in 10 years. And there'll be a new mayor maybe in 10 years. So it's the way you look at it. Thanks for striking it for me. You can put my name behind it. That's fine, no problem. The other one, I have just a little bit, I think some history has to be said here. The planners heard me. And some of you, you already know where I'm going. But the situation here is, the city for the past 10 years, and under Doug Morset, preserved this rail line. They were going to take it up. And he had the foresight to preserve it. And when he did that, some of you heard this little ditty and some of you haven't. That was the way to go. I know Dorothy knows this. This is the way to go to Chicago. You go to Madison and East Washington Avenue, and you could take the train from that location to the loop in Chicago. That was also a double line. It was it was the Hiawatha. What happened over time, they took up the one line, and Morset had the foresight to preserve it. And when I was in another position, there was a cement truck that hit the bridge down in Oregon and took out the bridge. And the idea was to keep that back, put it back with state funds and WSOR funds, so we kept the link. So the governor of the state and the mayor of Madison, if they want high-speed rail, all they have to do is come to Fitchburg and talk to us about it. It goes right through our city. That's the line right there that goes through the city. That goes through, I can name them for you. That goes through Oregon, that goes through Brooklyn, through Evansville, through Janesville, and into Chicago. That's the line right there. And I had alders that said to me, to my face, years ago, none of you, it will never happen. They won't preserve it. It will never happen. You're smoke dreaming. And I said, well, I think I'm going to prove you wrong. Fitchburg voted down the business park. It's the land I'm about to show you. They voted down the business park. Jerry Lupke was the town chairman. He said, Tom, we're going to go forward. And I said, Jerry, go for it. Go for it. Some of you may not know, most of you do, that's the Lycon plant in Oregon down there where we've got trucks off the road, big time, to put that aggregate, did I say that right? I think it did, on the rail line to bring to the cement plant. There's a little bit of a problem here. Every crossing in the state of Wisconsin, when you start putting one up, it's $275,000. So if we add a crossing to Irish Lane and Kane, Byrne, add 225,000 twice. And I know there's some people in the city that think we should just have a quiet zone from Lacey Road north and forget the rest of the city. Forget that one. The quiet zone, pick up all the crossings. We only have 2 more. But anyhow, Tom, don't get off the subject. Okay, I got you, Sarah. I won't. I'm on. So for years, you've all heard it. We have to do business on the rail line. We need business on the rail line. The rail line's in the city of Fitchburg. We need something for the rail line. I know we've heard it from city staff. I know I have. And some of them have retired. Long gone. So in District 4, that Janelle and I happen to have, that is the biggest district in the city of Fitchburg and gets the most static, and we have to answer the most phone calls. Do you want to get in this? We have to answer the most phone calls and take the most heat when the development comes. My wife, you should have heard the conversation she had yesterday. Forget that one. So what the deal is, Brunzell Lumber was going to build a plant on the south end of Fitchburg. And because we didn't get the business park, they sold it to the lady who has made contact with every one of you sitting up here to put her land in the plan. I will take it further. She's met every planner as well. And some of those same planners have changed their tune when it came to the body of the board, the Plan Commission. But I'm telling you, that rail line and what she would like to do is whatever's open to the public, really. She's not asking for TIF money. I better say that again. She's not asking for TIF money. She's not asking for any money. She could write out the check. She would like to put something on that development. That gentleman you heard tonight, she has hired to help her. There's been controversy between what Oregon has said, and I'm not questioning it, what they've told the mayor and they've told me. This is across from the school. The land is across from the school. It's 40 acres. I told her, and don't hold your hat, don't put your hat on what I'm about to say. I said, if there was a plastic company came or someone came and we had 200 jobs, would you let it go on your land? And she said, absolutely. So with that being said, what I'm about to show you is the 40 acres that she would like to put in the plan. That is on the rail line that I feel should just be a study area. Now, I'm going to say this again because I've had a lot of phone calls about Edgewood, and Edgewood has to go through the process. Edgewood, when I supported Edgewood, shouldn't be shortcutted. They have to follow the process. So does this. But all I'm saying, it goes in the plan as a study area. It goes in the plan as just a study area because Sonia will be the first to tell me and she's right, it hasn't been to the public. It hasn't had its day in court. It hasn't, we haven't looked at it in real depth. I get all that. But the point is this 40 acres, if you want to talk about the rail line, here's an opportunity that sits right in front of us that we could use. It's 40 acres, that's what the site looks like. You've heard from this lady. I really think she did her homework. She's talked to people that when they sat in different chairs, they seemed to change their mind. But this is what I'm talking about. It's 40 acres. You have it in front of you. She's talked to you. If you want to add it, fine. If you don't, maybe she should annex to Oregon. That's just food for thought. But this, a lot of you already know about it. I don't have to say much more. It's across from the school. It's right across from the school. I really like the idea that she's open for any development that would come along. I'm talking about business now. I'm even kind of shifting. I'm not shifting to apartments. I'm shifting to business. But I don't own the land. I don't own it. So I can't speak for her. But I know that she's talked to everybody on this body up here about this. So with that being said, we can talk about it later.
Okay, Mayor Richardson.
And I know Tom had brought this up last night as well, and there was some question, and I said I would reach out to the Oregon people, and so I did. And so I thought I would just share. I got a couple emails back, one from Michael, I think it's Gratz. He's the Pat Marsh of Oregon, and he said he hadn't talked to the, Grace, okay. He hadn't talked to the realtor who was here today, or Samina lately, so he had nothing else. But also Jeannie Carpenter, who is their village president, did reply and said, you know, Samina has the new realtor you met tonight who approached me in a 30-second conversation at the coffee shop. She owns Firefly in Oregon, if you're not aware, on Monday. And he had mentioned that he was getting Fitchburg to deal on the land and asked if the village of Oregon would be willing to have a conversation about providing services. I told him, and I quote, "I'm always willing to have a conversation." However, I made it very clear to him that the village is not interested in providing services to privately owned property that is not within our village limits. So I just wanted to share that. People may be watching at home and wondering if I had heard anything. So.
That's fair. I'm not questioning the mayor on that. What he was told, fine. I heard too from people in Oregon that said, if it's not in your comp plan, Tom, we won't even look at it. If it's in the comp plan, we can look at it. Here's the trump card too. You have to understand there's going to be different elections down in Oregon. It's only a 2-year village board down there. Just like here, there'll be new people. The person that the mayor just talked about, she may not be in a year and a half the village president anymore. So you're going to have a new board that said, this is a heck of a good idea. We're going to work with Fitchburg and make it happen. So keep that in mind too. There's two sides to this coin.
Okay, Alder Rutherford.
I want to tell you what I think about this, Tom. Is I am concerned that if we start, if you look in the map where the location of this lot is far away from all our connection to sewer, water, and everything. The town of Oregon is, they're smart. They're going to say, we are not going to connect sewer and water to this property when the city of Fitchburg is going to collect the taxes. You know what I mean? It's logic.
I don't know what you mean, because that can be worked out in an agreement.
Well, what I heard
I don't.
I have heard that those agreements usually don't happen, they're very difficult to.
They can't happen.
Okay, I am telling you. But then if we do this with this lot, we are open the city, we are going to have 20 people here with lots everywhere that they want to put it in the comprehensive plan.
Boy, I disagree with you. You got the school, Julia, right across the street.
Okay, so guys.
I am telling you,
street.
you're asking for our opinion, Tom, okay? And I want to tell you what is my concern. My concern is that we can be open, kind of, what is the expression, once or whatever it is, of, that people can come with other lots that they are totally very outside the urban service area and say, okay, you allow that lot, I want my lot too, I want my piece of land here. And then if we do that, we need to be prepared to deal with all of these things that it can happen. And this is my concern. And I think it's, for what I heard from the mayor, the town of Oregon, they are not willing to do this connection. Have they considered about septic or well? Can they do that in the
These
property?
questions have to go along with the school.
So, hey, guys, so what I'm gonna say, just a point of, what I'm gonna say is, so, now Tom's brought forward a proposal, just like some of the other alders did. And so we'll have a chance to debate his proposal, which he wrote up here, when it comes forward, when we have amendments to the plan. So, just to move things along a little bit, but we're kind of going back into a back and forth, which is fine, but we want to try and move it along a little bit. So, anybody else? Dorothy? Well, I mean, it's fine, but, you know. Yeah, go ahead.
If he's bringing this to us for an opinion, okay, I think we need to discuss it.
So, I guess.
Or what is the point that, are you expecting for our opinion?
Well, I think it's just like the 8 you brought, we can discuss it on the 10th too.
On the
You could
10th?
talk to
Okay,
people.
okay,
I'm
okay,
fine with
okay.
what the chairman said. I'm
Okay,
fine with
fine.
that.
So,
You know,
and, yeah,
you
and
can talk to
just
people.
'cause what I would say is,
Yeah.
so, you know, you have your
No, I know, yeah.
proposals, and Dorothy had a series of them, and Sarah, no, Tom, which is great. And so, but all this stuff, there will be an amendment process to the plan, and at that time, you can debate each one of these.
Okay.
So,
I thought we were open for discussion.
I mean, if you want to speak out, you can. I just, you know. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So since I brought these, the maps that I put at people's places is a composite, the future urban service area laid over the top of a satellite image map. So you can see, looking at that, where the current development is probably a little bit more added since whenever the satellite photo was taken. But the cross-hatching that you can see is the future urban service area indicator. And it shows areas adjacent to the rail line that are available to bring into the urban service area next, as soon as we start developing a neighborhood plan for it. I'd like people to really start considering how we can make use of that rail line on undeveloped land. If we put some kind of industry in there, they probably need a little bit of a side rail so that they're not parking trains right on the track when the track may need to be used for other purposes. And that would require quite a bit of land to have a business that needs a side track. So that is a long-term consideration that we ought to be looking at as we look at developable land adjacent to the rail line.
Okay, Sonia?
Just want to make a point that differentiates the proposal brought forward by Alder Clouder from all of the other policy adjustments that we've been discussing. I've mentioned this at the last 3 Plan Commission meetings where this was discussed, so it shouldn't be any surprise, but just to be very clear, in staff's opinion, this is extremely far outside of the scope of work approved by the council. There was an understanding when we adopted the resolution in 2019 that there wouldn't be any changes to future urban development areas. The Plan Commission and Council made specific points that they would make exceptions for the Edgewood project and the Oregon School project, being that they had some sort of public benefit and generational impact that we needed to accommodate them during this cycle. Also to note that this would be, in staff's reading of the plan, very inconsistent with most of the policies that we already have. For example, following a development pattern consistent with the urban growth map. This simply doesn't follow anything in the plan at all. What we're asking is to essentially write a blank check to one private property owner to allow any type of development adjacent to a school with no planning whatsoever. I did indicate at Plan Commission as well some concerns with the type of carving out of individual parcels, even for a school, for example, something that we would typically want to encourage to be located within walking distance of residential neighborhoods. Now we've been considering an isolated school site without allowance for any development adjacent, and will be faced with pressure without sort of anticipating those consequences at all. So just to be very clear, inconsistent with the scope approved by the council, inconsistent with most of the policies of the plan, and also inconsistent with the public input we received specifically from District 4 residents, which support ag preservation.
Okay, yeah, Tom?
I'm going to comment on that a little bit. I still understand what the staff member said, but at the same time, I'm going to say that we probably didn't clarify it with the public hearing, the use on the rail line. In other words, how can the rail line be used? I had one planner that talked to the applicant that said, look, I think it's a great idea if you could get your land in all the way to Highway 14. Let's think about this for a second. Your land all the way to Highway 14, because there's a school going in across the street, and not too far from us, there's a thing called Epic, and they're looking for housing, they're looking for development, and Dorothy, the word is, it's called a spur that goes off that rail line, and the spur goes into the property, and that could be, it doesn't have to be housing. It doesn't have to be at all. It could be something else. And will that develop? Contrary from what you just heard from staff, yes, it will develop. Just like we weren't going to develop as much on Seminole Highway as we have right now. When I sat in here years ago, everything was supposed to go east. And guess what? We've gone west.
It's all been consistent with the plan that was adopted in 2009.
So, is there anyone else? Okay, then we are wrapping up comments and questions, and we are moving into adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn at this time?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second? And all in favor of adjournment can indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed may say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We're in adjournment. Thank you, everyone.